You guys ready for Zen Garcia? All right. The question is Zen ready for you? And I think he is. Johnny, is Zen ready?
Yeah, I just need my crew to...
Yep, we're gonna do some stuff real quick here. Take 5 minutes just to stand up and stretch your legs so we can get this kind of taken care of for Zen, and then we're gonna bring him up right away. We won't do a long break. We're gonna keep on going. If you see somebody, if you go to the bathroom, just make it quick. And we're gonna continue on Zen Garcia coming up next here at Flat Earth International Conference 2018. All right, is everybody back in? Everybody ready? Because I know Zen is. And his lovely assistant?
Carol.
Carol. Everybody say hi, Carol. For those of you that know our next guest here, obviously, he has been doing all kinds of research all over the place, huh, Zen? Just a little bit?
Just a little.
Last year, after the conference was over, I know Robbie and I had talked, and I know Zen had talked with Robbie, and there was we finally, guess, well, here he is. You got to make it. So this is a wonderful thing. So we wanted to, first of all, say thanks again to everybody for being here and understanding we're running a little bit behind. Those of you watching on the live stream, we apologize. It is what it is. It's a conference, and there's a lot of information that needs to be out there, and we don't want to cut anybody short, and we kind of got a late start. So without me even talking more about being late and making us later, I'm going to go ahead and bring Zen up if the microphone's working. Is the mic working? If not, I'm going to give him my pack.
Can everybody hear me okay?
No. I'm going to give him my pack. Please, while you guys are clapping, I'm going to take my mic off and slap it on Zen's head here. Give Zen Garcia a very warm welcome.
This one's on now.
All right, test 1, 2. Can everybody hear me all right?
Wait, we got a battery switch.
him mine.
Hold on. We got it. He's got it.
I'm just going to give him mine.
Okay.
Come around, Zen.
Sure.
He's good. Power on. Should be power
Sorry,
on.
Zen. I'm pulling your hair.
Oh, you're good.
No, we got him.
All right. Everybody can hear me all right? Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, fellas. I appreciate all of you being here. It's a great honor to be here with all of you as well and to be part of the speakers and presenters. It's been a long journey. The last 3 years has been incredible for this particular topic. And want to also thank Robbie Davidson and all his efforts to bring this to light with regard to the mainstream. And it's forcing everybody to reconsider what we have been indoctrinated into, what we've been taught with regard to the Copernican heliocentric system. And those of you that have followed my work and know of what I do, my forte is the study of the ancient manuscripts. And so this evening I'm going to be speaking about my discernment that led me to be able to understand and to also decrypt the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries found in the book of Enoch, and how it's only by embracing this new possibility that that information could come to light in a manner that is understandable. And so I'll be speaking of that journey to awakening. Paralyzed in 1994 when we lost our brakes on a mountain road in Garberville, California, I rededicated my life to the study of the Bible and other ancient manuscripts, which because of the advent of the internet was easily accomplishable and something that being in a wheelchair had no bearing upon. Examining these sources, I became familiar with concepts little spoken about by mainstream churchianity. Having been a published author since 1992, I began releasing books about my findings on such esoteric subjects as the antediluvian age, fallen angels, giants, bloodlines, pre-existence, and end-time prophecy, which interestingly were topics coming to the forefront of human consciousness during that time. In 2006, I began making guest appearances on the many blogtalkradio.com shows, which had sprung up with the release of this self-broadcasting portal. In 2008, I created my own show and now find myself part of the two largest internet radio platforms, Revolution and Truth Frequency Radio. And I'd like to also announce that Robbie Davidson will be joining us on Revolution Radio as well on Saturdays in the evening, and so please do support his new show coming up within a few weeks, hopefully. At beginning of 2015, one of my co-hosts, the hijacker, calling into my show, began imploring me to examine flat Earth as topic. Having taken 3 years of astronomy as my science in college and believing this topic lunacy, historically settled, and a complete waste of time, I refused. It was only after months of insistence to remain open-minded by he and other listeners, something that I always requested of them when bringing forth highly contested teachings. It was either prove myself a hypocrite or begin unbiased investigation of this new possibility. Okay, cool. Begrudgingly, in January of 2015, I embarked on a probe of flat Earth-related YouTube content, and after a day of searching, I became acquainted with the Bedford level experiment. Conducted in 1838 by Samuel Burley Robotham, using a telescope, he sent a boat with a flag tied to its mast 6 miles across the Stillwater Canal to see whether it changed in height. A knowledgeable mathematician, he figured out that given the accepted circumference of a spherical Earth, the top of the mast should have been some 11 feet below his line of sight. In 1849, publishing Zetetic Astronomy under the pseudonym Parallax, he reported, if the Earth is a globe and is 25,000 English statute miles in circumference, the surface of all standing water must have a certain degree of convexity. Every part must be an arc of a circle. From the summit of any such arc, there will exist a curvature or declination of 8 inches in the first statute mile. In the second mile, the fall will be 32 inches. In the third mile, 72 inches, or 6 feet, as shown in the following diagram. After the first few miles, the curvature would be so great that no difficulty could exist in detecting either its actual existence or its proportion. In the county of Cambridge, there is an artificial river or canal called the Old Bedford. It is upwards of 20 miles in length, and it passes in a straight line through that part of the fens called the Bedford Level. The water is nearly stationary, often completely so, and throughout its entire length has no interruption from locks or water gates of any kind, so that it is in every respect well adapted for ascertaining whether any or what amount of convexity really exists. Robotham, like us, those of us gathered here, investigated whether there was any truth to the existence of curvature. And like us, was led to the realization that Earth has no rotundity to its form. This fact is one that anyone, anywhere can visually affirm for themselves. Landmarks such as lighthouses, islands, monuments, statues, cityscapes can verifiably be seen beyond the scientifically accepted formula for determining the so-called sphericity of the Earth. Even the natural properties of and physics of water negate impossibility that oceans could adhere to a ball or settle out in curved form. Other 19th century experiments, like Michelson-Morley, proved the Earth was not moving at any rate of speed. Michelson-Gale, that the ether moved independently of it. Sagnac, that the ether slowed light passing through it. Airy's failure, that the Earth being stationary and non-moving, the stars moved independently in circuit above it. Conducting an honest examination of these and other scientific experiments, one must admit that without a doubt, the Earth is immovable and holds no curvature in shape, which interestingly are facts asserted by the inspiration of God's Word and the prophets like David and Enoch. An avid student of the ancient accounts, my first thought when considering the feasibility of the earth being flat was to re-examine Enoch's book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, a text which, even though I had read numerous times, was never able to comprehend. Reviewing it in new perspective, I was mind-blown to discover that what the Most High God was revealing to me about cosmology, Enoch had encoded 2,000 plus years ago in Revelation for, quote, a generation which is to succeed at a distant period. I believe we are that generation. From them I heard all things and understood what I saw, that which will not take place in this generation, but in a generation which is to succeed at a distant period, on account of the elect. The knowledge I will present here tonight has, for the last 500 years of accepted heliocentric ideology, been lost as riddle. Everyone born into the world, which since the time of Copernicus, is it falling out? Okay. Has been indoctrinated into a system of belief which has no basis in reality. Identifying the enormity of this epiphany, I began chronicling in disclosure what became my 9th, 10th, and 14th books. In June 2015, I released The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, which in portion will be some of the information that I present here. In August of 2016, I followed up that release with The Firmament, Vaulted Dome of the Earth, and last year at the August 2017 Global versus Flat Earth debate that I had with Dr. Stephen Pidgeon, I released Paradise, the Sides of the North, and the Mount of the Congregation. In 4 years, I've published 1,500 plus pages detailing my journey to this awakening. Together with my son Justin and daughter-in-law Joy, we started Sacred Word Publishing to make available in book form such out-of-print titles as The Earth Stands Fast, 50 Reasons Copernicus versus the Bible, The Flat Earth Archival Proofs of William Carpenter, Is the Earth a Globe?, Kings Dethroned, Zetetic Cosmogony, That the World is Not a Rotating, Revolving Globe, A Songwriter's Story, The Iron Republic, The Book of the Earth, Flat Earth Chronicles, and the collected Flat Earth manuscripts. We will be giving away copies of these books together with autographed copies of my personal Flat Earth trilogy in a free-to-enter drawing to be conducted right before the Flat Earth segment at the end of this conference, awards segment at the end of this conference. Just visit the Sacred Word Publishing booth, which is in that room over there, to enter, and you have to be present to win. Also, if interested, you can find any of our titles and the many collected ancient manuscripts that we've released at sacredwordpublishing.com. Enoch, in chapter 71 through 81 of the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, explains that the sun as the greater luminary and the moon as the lesser luminary, together with all the other celestial hosts, move in circle around Polaris, a motion which is confirmed by the time-lapse photography, videography of star trails over the course of an evening, the midnight sun phenomena, and many other ancient sources, such as those cited below. Uriel showed me the angel whom the Lord of glory appointed over all the luminaries of heaven and in the world, that they might rule in the face of the sky, and appearing over the earth, become conductors of the days and the nights. The sun, the moon, the stars, and all the ministers of heaven, which make their circuit with all the chariots of heaven. And so Enoch tells us that it is the sun and the moon and the other luminaries which move in circle above the earth. Can you give me this here? Thank you. The following two verses are key to understanding what Enoch details as circuit for the celestial hosts. Only by applying the description of these motions, you can turn. Description of these motions to the backdrop of the earth's circle, can one truly make sense of what the archangel Uriel describes to Enoch. Attempting to filter these passages through the heliocentric model for world, these passages remain inexplicably incomprehensible. The next one. You're fine. Oh, wait. No, not yet. The sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. A different passage from Enoch 77:4. They enter into the west gate, circuit by the north, and through the eastern gate go forth over the face of heaven. So Enoch tells us that the luminaries are moving from east to west and then north to east. When understanding that, you know that it is in a circle that he is specifying that these motions take place. And so comprehending that and making sense of that, I applied all the rest of the motions that he describes in these chapters to the backdrop of the earth as a clock's face. And that applying these motions in that manner to this movement, the whole book of Enoch comes to life in manner that has been hidden for 500 years. Ancient cosmologies define the planets or wandering stars, wandering meaning going about from place to place, as including the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. They circle the pole star once every 24-hour day. As the central pivot for the circular arrangement of all the other stars, Polaris has been for thousands of years utilized by navigators of former times to determine true north, it being the one fixed and non-moving star that all of the other luminaries move and circle around. An impossible feat in a universe where the Earth simultaneously orbits the sun at 1,037 miles per hour, as the so-called solar system orbits the Milky Way at 558,000 miles per hour. And the Milky Way galaxy revolves around some grand universal center at an astounding 1,342 miles per hour. It's okay. Oh, okay. With the compounding effect of all these motions, the stars could never remain in a consistent pattern of orientation. And yet, this is the case. That's good. Yes. Accepting that the sun is in motion and not the earth, it makes sense why Joshua, given power to stop in motion the sun and the moon when elongating the day. For if it were the earth spinning which caused the sun to rise and set in perspective, as heliocentrists believe, Yahuwah would have given power to Joshua over the earth and the moon instead of the sun and the moon. Heliocentrists cannot resolve the occurrence of this biblical story or the occurrence of the sun going back 10 degrees on the sundial in Isaiah and 2 Kings. According to the Copernican model, the earth was stopped spun backwards, and then sped up to resume its normal 1,000 mile per hour rotation, and yet no catastrophic repercussions. Yep. Consider that 2 months ago, a Category 5 hurricane named Michael, coming ashore with 150 mile per hour winds near the Florida Panhandle, leveled in devastation that region. It caused 34 known deaths, hundreds of billions of dollars in damage, and 300 people are still missing. And yet, most believe the Earth spins routinely at 1,037 miles per hour, and yet we feel nothing of such velocity. How can this be? I believe that if the Earth were truly moving at such a rate that nothing on the surface could survive, exposed to such annihilating wind shear. And still, science claims these measurements, confirmed by the Cosmic Background Explorer satellite in 1989 and 1990, suggest that our galaxy and its neighbors, the so-called local group, are moving at 600 kilometers per second, 1.34 million miles per hour in the direction of the constellation Hydra. Another common phenomenon which confirms the circular motions attributed to the luminaries by Enoch is the midnight sun. A natural curiosity, this spectacle can be viewed from latitudes above the Arctic Circle, near the time of the summer solstice. The longest day of the year for people living in northern latitudes, the summer solstice marks the point where the sun, reaching the Tropic of Cancer, reverses course, beginning its movement southward back towards the equator. The nearest point of approach to the northern pole, observers in high northern latitudes during this time can witness the sun moving in full 24-hour circular revolution from east to west across southern skies, and then back west to east across northern skies without its ever dipping below the horizon. It will remain in unobstructed view, looping above the mountain landscape over the course of several days without ever reaching the vanishing point. And while science affirms the phenomena of a 24-hour sun, not just daylight, but a 24-hour sun, can be witnessed at both poles, the heliocentric worldview cannot truthfully explain such occurrence happening at either pole. Mar Isaac says the sun performs its course from east to west and goes behind the lofty northern mountains the whole night until he rises in the east. I have several other quotes also available in the book that we've released with this. It's called the Flat Earth Convention Notes, and I basically took 130 pages of material that I wanted to present on and condensed into 45 minutes. And so you can imagine that a lot of that is not present here, but if you're interested in all the schematics, the diagrams, and the ancient sources that I quote to confirm this information, you can find it in that particular book, along with 60 pages of photographs that Laura Lawson took of last year's Flat Earth Conference. And so do check that out, because I know she promised many of you that the photos would be used for a book, and they indeed were. Even the Hebrew word for sun, shemesh, derived from the verb shamash, means to run hastily or move very fast, implying again that it is the sun which is in motion and not the earth. The sun moves in a spiral line or winding like a screw around the earth, southward from June till December and northward from December till June. He therefore daily stays behind the stars about 4 minutes, thus marching through all the stars within a year. The Hebrew word for sun is shemesh, and he is called thus because of his swift motion. The verb shamash means to run hastily, to move very fast. You can find that in the 50 Reasons, Copernicus, or the Bible. I will now reveal Enoch's riddles on the motions of the luminaries by explaining the following quote from 3 ancient sources. The sun moves in a spiral line winding like a screw southward from June until December, and then northward from December until June. I will confirm and explain this pattern of motion, and because the Bible says, out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses the truth shall be established, I believe that these 3 ancient sources are relevant for confirming Enoch's testimony. Called the Analemma, the visual pattern verifies that the sun, when moving through the Enochian gates over the course of the year, speeds up as it moves towards the Tropic of Capricorn and slows down as it moves towards the Tropic of Cancer to maintain equilibrium in revolution with a 24-hour day. This change in velocity is why we see in this circular portion of the Analemma, corresponding to spring and summer, is smaller than the circle which corresponds to fall and winter. This adjustment is cited in the Vedic cosmology. The sun passing through the north, through the south, or crossing the equator is known differently depending its slowness, swiftness, or equality of movement. In its rising and setting or staying up in different positions, it is making long, short, or equally long days, while it is ordained and moves through the different signs of the zodiac. I'll begin with the Targum version of Ecclesiastes 1 through 3 and 6, as the original interpretation of this King James passage has been lost in translation. Especially notice that the motion attributed to the wind in verse 6 is in the older renditions connected to the continual motion of the sun. When understood, Solomon in these 2 verses is referencing the same seasonal movements of the sun's transit back and forth between the tropics as visually presented in the Analemma. The sun rises by day from the east side and sun sets on the west side at night. It glides into its place going by the path of the deep, and it rises the next day from the place where it rose there yesterday. It goes along the whole south side by day and returns to the north side by the path of the deep. Round and round it goes to the wind of the northern side at the period of the Nisan and Tammuz, the vernal equinox and the summer solstice. And on its circuit it returns to the wind of the southern side at the period of Tishri and Tibet, the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. It goes out from the eastern lattices at dawn and enters through the western lattices in the evening. That's the Targum rendition of Ecclesiastes 1, verses 3 through 6. Like Enoch, Solomon divulges that the sun from the equator in Nisan, which is March, moves across northern latitudes until reaching the Tropic of Cancer in Tammuz, the Hebrew month for June, for the summer solstice. And from the equator and autumnal equinox, it moves southward from Tishri, September, to Tibet in December, until reaching the Tropic of Capricorn for winter solstice. He also, like Enoch, explains that the sun moves in a circle above the earth, rising by day. Rising by day from the east side and setting on the west side, illuminates the portion of the earth which had been in darkness 12 hours prior. Moving northward by the path of the deep, it rises the next day from the place where it rose there yesterday. Confirmation of this description can be found also in John Gill's exposition of the entire Bible, where he says that the wind goeth toward the south and turneth about the north. The word wind is not in the clause in the original text, but it is taken from the next and so may be rendered. It goes towards the south, and that is the sun, before mentioned, which as it is the diurnal and nocturnal course in the daytime, goes towards the south, and in the night towards the north. As it to its annual course, before the winter solstice it goes to the south, and before the summer solstice to the north, as interpreters observe. Next image. Enoch describes 6 gates spanning the width of the 2 tropics. To grasp this layout, imagine facing west, next one, towards the setting sun as depicted above. The line furthest to the left marks the farthest south that the sun will set on the horizon for winter solstice, when reaching the Tropic of Capricorn. The central line, or the equidistant mean, represents the equator and location where the vernal and autumnal equinoxes occur. The line furthest right marks the summer solstice, and the farthest north the sun will set on the horizon when reaching the Tropic of Cancer. The 6 gates correspond to a 30-day span and equate to the 12 signs of the zodiac and the months of the year. The 2 tropics even derive their name from their corresponding astrological symbols. The motions of the sun through the houses of the zodiac can be understood in broader application when applied to this illustration. Yeah, actually go to the next one. I'm going to just be reading show the next one too. As Enoch shows in the portion of chapter 71, attributing the motions of the greater luminary, which is the sun, he describes this motion through these 6 gates, and it's only by applying it to this particular timeline that you see on the image that we can really understand what it's doing, because they represent the 2 tropics, the Tropic of Capricorn, the Tropic of Cancer, and the sun's movement over 6 months back and forth between these, creating the 12 months of the year, which also, as you've seen in the previous, correspond to the signs of the zodiac. The sun will over 180 days move from one tropic to the other and return through each gate twice as it transits back and forth across the expanse, completing a full solar year. Enoch begins his account of the sun's journey when positioned directly above the equator between the 3rd and the 4th gates of heaven. The first 30-day segment corresponds to the sign of Aries, the Hebrew month of Nisan, and the days between March 21st and April 19th. The Enochian calendar begins with the 91 days of spring. The 4th gate is the first of the 3 which subdivides the area between the equator and the Tropic of Cancer, the other 2 being the 5th and the 6th gates. Over the next 3 months, the sun, as it approaches the North Pole and the center of the earthen plane, will daily shorten its revolution and slow its rate of speed. This adjustment will fractionally lengthen day while decreasing the duration of night. To comprehend the math utilized by Enoch for apportioning day and night, one must simply divide a 24-hour day by 18 equal segments. The result is that each portion of the 18 segments correspond and tally to 1.33 hours. And whereas the vernal equinox divides the day and the night into 9 units, 11.9-hour portions, which we know that the equinoxes give us equal 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night. The daylight following the month of equinox, increasing slightly, is divided by Enoch in 10 and 8 units, corresponding to 13.3 hours of day and 10.6 hours of night. The 5th gate represents the sign of Taurus, the Hebrew month of Iyar, and the 30th day period of April 20th through May 20th. Enoch divides this 24-hour duration by 11 and 7 units, equaling 14.6 hours and 9.3 hours of night. Reaching the Tropic of Cancer for summer solstice and longest day of the year, the sixth gate represents the sign of Gemini, the Hebrew month of Sivan, and the days between May 21st and June 21st. Enoch always includes an additional day into the monthly count. Whenever the sun crosses the equator or reaching solstice, begins trajectory back towards the equator. The June solstice commences the 91 days of summer and the occurrence of the midnight sun. Light being twice as long as darkness, Enoch divides this 24-hour portion by 12 and 6 units, corresponding to 15.9 hours for day and 7.9 hours for night. Reversing course and descending through the sixth gate, back towards the equator. This 30-day portion represents the sign of Cancer, the Hebrew month of Tammuz, and the days between June 22nd and July 21st. This day begins decreasing in length. Enoch divides this duration by 11 and 7 units, 14.6 hours a day and 9.3 hours of night. Descending back through the fifth gate, this 30-day segment represents the sign of Leo, the Hebrew month of Av, and the days between July 23rd and August 22nd. Enoch tallies this 24-hour duration by 10 and 8 units, equaling 13.3 hours of day and 10.6 hours of night. Reaching the equator for the autumnal equinox, this 31-day segment represents the sign of Virgo, the Hebrew month of Elul, and days between August 23rd and September 22nd. The equinox initiates the 91 days of fall. Equal in length, Enoch tallies this 24-hour duration by 9 units, equaling 11.9 for the length of day and night. Reaching the third gate and sign of Libra, this 30-day portion represents the Hebrew month of Tishri and the days between September 23rd and October 22nd. Crossing the equator, the sun moves into southern latitudes, beginning the 91 days of spring for those inhabiting the outer portion of the hemiplane, and fall for those living us in northern latitudes and the inner portion of the hemiplane. Darkness taking precedence over light, Enoch divides this 24-hour duration by 8 and 10 units, 10.6 hours of day and 13.3 hours of night. Reaching the second gate for the sign of Scorpio in the Hebrew month of Sivan, this 30-day portion represents the days between October 23rd and November 21st. Enoch tallies this 24-hour duration by 7 and 11 units, corresponding to 9.3 hours of daylight and 14.6 hours of night. Reaching the Tropic of Capricorn for the winter solstice. This 31-day segment represents the sign of Sagittarius, the Hebrew month of Kislev, in the days between November 22nd and December 21st, extending to the most southerly point of its journey towards the outer Antarctic ice wall, and what Scripture cites as the ends of the earth. The December solstice marks the beginning of the 91 days of winter, the longest night of the year, and the point where the sun, reversing course, travels back towards the equator. Twice as long in proportion, Enoch divides this 24-hour duration by 6 and 12 units, corresponding to 7.9 hours of day and 15.9 hours of night. The detail of the sun's motion from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn through the 6 gates of heaven is finished. However, starting his narrative of its transit from the vernal equinox, when positioned directly above the equator, Enoch will continue his discourse of the sun's movement back through the first, second, and third gates, whereupon reaching the equator, his description matches the completion of a full 364-day solar year. Reversing course and returning northward through the first gate, this 30-day segment represents the sign of Capricorn, the Hebrew month of Tibet, and the days between December 22nd and January 19th. And even though the 3 months following the December solstice are the coldest of the entire year, the days become prolonged, growing slightly in length with each passing day. Enoch divides this 24-hour duration by 7 and 11 units, 9.3 hours of day and 14.6 hours of night. Moving through the second gate, this 30-day segment represents the sign of Aquarius, the Hebrew month of Shavat, the days between January 20th and February 18th. Enoch apportions this 24-hour duration by 8 and 10 units, equaling 10.6 hours for day and 13.3 hours for evening. Passing through the third gate and reaching the equator, this 31-day segment corresponds to the sign of Pisces, the Hebrew month of Adar, and the days between February 19th and March 20th. Initiating detail of the sun's movement through the 6 gates of heaven on the vernal equinox, Enoch finishes discourse of its transit with its return to the equator. This occurrence marks the beginning of another spring season and another Enochian seasonal calendar year, which it makes more sense to me to begin the year on the vernal equinox with the beginning of spring than it does in beginning it in January 1st in the middle of winter as the Gregorian calendar does. Equal in tally, Enoch divides this 24-hour duration by 9 units each, equaling 11.999 hours of both day and night. In finality, the sun, I will share a confirming witness from a portion of chapter 21 of the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also a very ancient manuscript, thousands of years old. And like Solomon and Enoch, it also gives great detail to the description of the sun's motion back and forth between the tropics. And so this will be the final confirming witness. The sun passing through the north, through the south, or crossing the equator is known differently depending on its slowness, swiftness, or equality of movement. In its rising and setting or staying up in different positions, it is making long, short, or equally long days, while it, as ordained, moves through the different signs of the zodiac, beginning with the sign of Makara, which is Capricorn. When the sun enters Mesha or Tula, the Aries and Libra, at the equinoxes, the days and nights are of an equal length. When it moves through the first 5 months, headed by Virishaba, which is the month of Taurus, through Gemini, the days increase and then decrease by half an hour every month. As it passes through the next 5 months, beginning with Virishika, which is Scorpio, the lengthening and the shortening of the days and the nights works opposite. Thus, encircling with an orbit Mount Meru, it creates sunrise, sunset, noontime, and midnight, bringing about the particular times that living beings are active or cease their activity. Those who live in those places where the sun is in are always heated. It moves turning left around Mount Meru from the point where it rises to diametrically opposite point where it sets. Again, this is describing a circle. When one locally no longer sees the sun in the sky because it has set, it causes the people to sleep. While diametrically opposite to the place the people seeing the sun rising, because of its heat, it makes them set sweat, and they begin their long day of work. Along with it, also the other planets and stars, headed by the moon, are seen rising and setting in the celestial sky. This vehicle has only one wheel with 12 spokes corresponding to the months, 6 segments which correspond to Enoch's heavenly gates, and 3 pieces to its hub, the 4 seasonal periods, which in its entirety is known as a solar year. Its axle is fixed on the top of Meru, with Mansurata, which is the Antarctic ice wall, or the ends of the earth being at the other end. The wheel of the chariot of the sun, being fixed, rotates to the mountain range of Mount Satora like a wheel of an oil press machine. Its upper portion is fixed to Dhruvaloka, which is Polaris in the Vedic cosmology, the center of the stars. And so we see that all 3 of these ancient accounts speak about the sun and the moon, the planets, the wandering stars, and all the other luminaries moving in circle above the face of the earth. And that the earth, being fixed and motionless, is a foundation for such movement. So the whole Copernican heliocentric model for how they have indoctrinated our children and even ourselves into buying into and believing that the earth is a globe and one of 9 planets which moves in circle around the sun, all that is fabricated. And those of you that are here now that have looked into and studied the ancient manuscripts, and also what we visually see as confirmation that there is no curvature to the earth, that even, again, the properties of water nullify the whole concept that it could adhere to a ball, or that it will settle in some kind of curved form. Water will always pool together, gather in collection, and then form a straight horizontal level. And this is what we see when we go to the oceans. From every part of the horizon, we see the ocean surrounding us in complete, perfect, flat, level, and horizontal line. And so the ancient manuscripts, as I've shown here from these 3 witnesses, the Targum version of Ecclesiastes, the book of Enoch on the greater luminary, the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, and the Canto 5 of the Srimad Bhagavatam all tell us this. And this is what we see with our own observance and what we see as witness and being part of the creation. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. I appreciate all of you. And thank you for opening yourself to new possibility, because it's only when we come to truth and to knowledge with an open mind that we can really begin to learn something anew. And this particular deception has shown us just how wide and how rampant deception rules in this world. And so God bless all of you in your seeking for truth. Thank you, sir. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, Rick.
All right. Hang on, guys. Sorry.
You want this one?
I may need it. I came unhooked. Am I back online? There we go. All right. Zen Garcia, everybody. Thank you, Zen, again. Appreciate what you're doing. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Can you guys handle a 10-minute break? We've been going pretty hard here, so. All right, 10-minute break. Get up, stretch your legs, grab a drink of water, whatever you got to do. Daryl Marble will be coming up. Once again, give it up, Zen Garcia.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, man.